Face the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to have Pastor Paul come up and do the invocation.
Will you pray with me? Oh God, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help those entrusted with leadership here to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow them to grow closer as a group and nurture the bonds of community in this place. Fill them with your grace, Lord God, as they make decisions that will affect this community and all who call Cocoa Beach home and all who come as our guests. Continue to remind these leaders and all who will speak that all that they do here today, all that they will accomplish, is for the well-being of all you have entrusted to us first, and for the service of all. We ask these things in your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. City Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Jackson?
Here.
Commissioner Williams?
Here.
Commissioner Willis?
Here.
Vice Mayor Hutcherson?
Here.
Mayor Capizzi?
Here. Can I get a motion approval for the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Motion and a second for the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Any public comment about items that are not on the agenda? All right. Staff reports and announcements.
Okay, I have our employee that we're going to recognize this evening, and I don't want anybody blurting out his name, so I'm going to give a little bit of a background on him. Actually, she went to USF. She graduated with a civil engineering degree, and she's our engineer in training, and her name is Morgan Zolke, and she's doing a terrific job. She is our stormwater manager now, and she's very interested in stormwater. She's probably one of the smartest engineers that I've run into in my numerous years of life here so far. And she's the next generation in the city. She likes it here. We want to keep her here. And so she's our employee of this meeting. Come on out, Morgan. Here's a little present for you.
Thank you.
And why don't you say a couple words?
Okay. Thank you, Wayne, for this. I really appreciate it. I've loved working at the city so far. I feel like I've learned a lot through my experience and have just really enjoyed it. Thank you.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Morgan. City Attorney reports.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
All right. City Commission reports or announcements. All right. Roland. Oh.
You guys look at these two pieces of paper that I had Karen print for you. As part of my job on the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization, you know, we've always known we needed to raise the causeway from Cocoa Beach to Merritt Island on 520 due to flooding issues, and won't take much of a big storm to wash half of that causeway out. I emphasize the part where once they move the hospital, we won't be able to get to a hospital in a timely manner unless we can get across that stretch of road. This is from their long-range planning, and last year we didn't even make the list. This year we're number 3, and if you look on this page, number 3 there in the second section, it's
a vulnerability analysis. The planning portion is funded in fiscal year 2024. It's already ongoing, and the funded phase cost was just shy of $300,000. And once they get that funded phase done, then we'll work it up through the priorities to actually get the work done. And it ain't gonna happen in the next 2 or 3 years, but this is the only way to move it up. It is a state road. It won't cost the city any money, but we do have to be advocates for things that help our community, not only us, but actually Cape Canaveral, because it is a hurricane evacuation route too. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Any other commission reports? Good. All right, moving along. Consent agenda.
Okay, this is the consent agenda. Item 1, approve the June 20th meeting minutes, staff representative, city clerk. Item 2, approve Kimberly Horn and Associates task order number 5 for Minutemen Causeway shoreline stabilization, design permitting and bidding services in the amount of $88,701. This is a budgeted item. Staff representative, Morgan Zulke, stormwater utility manager. Item 3, approve renewal of piggyback contract agreement for street sweeping services provided by Sweeping Corporation of America, LLC, a subsidiary of Sweep America Intermediate Holdings, LLC. The street sweeping services are required by the city's National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES permit. This is a budgeted item. Staff representative, Morgan Zulke, stormwater management. Item 4, approve $60,000 ARPA funds for painting Fire Station 51. Staff representative, Morgan Zulke, stormwater utility manager.
Move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Unfinished business.
Okay, item 1, approve the recommendation to promote Wes Mullins to police chief for the city of Cocoa Beach per Chapter 2, Article 1, Section 2.5, Police Department of the City of Cocoa Beach Code of Ordinances. Staff representative, Wayne Caragino, city manager.
Okay, so just a little background on why I selected Wes. I've been working with Wes for a little bit over 8 months now, and known him much longer than that. So the charter says that the city manager shall select the police chief. And the reason for that is that I'm in the position to work with him on a daily basis. I'm the one that evaluates his performance, and we have kind of a unity together. So it makes sense that I would make that selection as opposed to you guys. Not knocking anybody, but you know, I'm in that position. Wes has done a great job. You know, the city's been through a lot in the last 8 or 9 months, transition and change and some rough times, and Wes brought calm to the department. He brought unity to the department. He brought respect to everyone, and everyone respects him. And I just think he's done a great job putting all that other stuff behind us. And so has the commission, for that matter. So we've looked forward in my eyes. And so I want to keep that going. And I mean, I just think he's the perfect choice for the job, and I wouldn't put my neck out for anybody but him for that position, and I hope you guys agree with me.
Thank you. I'll piggyback on that. I mean, in the beginning, obviously, I had my doubts, so I've been watching him, and I've been talking to the officers, and I've probably personally talked to at least 20-plus officers about Wes, and it's been overwhelmingly, you know, they were saying they've been running as smooth as ever. the respect is there. So for me, I think it's a no-brainer that he's been doing the job. He's been doing an excellent job at it. So I agree with you. I think there's the main thing that I hear from the police is they want stability, and it's time to give them stability. It's time to give them something that they are comfortable with, that they know. We don't need to, in my opinion, go out and try to find somebody else that they don't know, that they got to learn again. So I think it's just the logical choice, so thank you.
So another thing too, because I'm doing off the cuff here, but the one thing that galvanized my decision was when we had that pop-up party. And within 48 hours, we had to react to that, which had a tremendous potential craziness to occur here in the city. And Wes organized the whole response to that. I've never seen anything like that in my life, honestly. I mean, I just was absolutely amazed in his performance on that. You could not have done any better. And you guys back there know what I'm talking about because you were all there. So, I mean, I just wanted to kick that in there. So.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? All right, any commission comment?
Yeah, well, I think we need a motion, so I felt a little bit, with all that went on, I felt a little bit that, we owed it to actually go out for a search. But, I have no problem with Wes and the job he's doing. But due to other circumstances, which are now basically a moot point, I mean, the city manager put out this on the agenda saying he's making the recommendation. Should we say we wanted to put it out and see if anybody applied, who in their right mind that had any caliber would apply, knowing that they could go through the motions and it's still Wayne's choice and he'd still probably pick Wes. So I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation to promote Wes Mullins to police chief for the city of Cocoa Beach.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Congratulations, Wes.
And the crowd went wild. Where's the balloon drop?
Let me be the first to call you
Wes
Chief
doesn't
Mullins.
want to say anything tonight, but he'll be back.
Thank you, Wes.
Not feeling good.
All but one of you guys can go back to work.
All right, let's see. Item
We're on
2.
item 2. Okay. This is unfinished business. Item 2, adopt ordinance 1691 on second reading, an ordinance of the city of Cocoa Beach, Florida, related to the vacation of a portion of McNabb Parkway right-of-way, approximately 60 feet long by 3 feet wide, more particularly described herein, making findings and providing for conflict, severability, non-codification, and effective date. Staff Representative Randy Stevenson, Director of Development Services.
Move to approve and adopt ordinance 1691 on the second reading.
Got a motion and a second. Yeah, I'll just speak up on this. This just makes sense if you know the area and what it is. It's really just, it's just needs to be done in order to make this certain section work for somebody, and the city is absolutely not going to be using it for anything. So I'm in favor of this. Is there any public comment on this? Okay. Any commission comment? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Oh, roll call. Sorry.
Commissioner Jackson?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Hutcherson,
Aye.
Mayor Capizzi.
Aye. All right. Next item, J1.
Okay, this is new business. Item 1, adopt Resolution 2024-17, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Cocoa Beach, Florida, amending Resolution 2023-06, a master resolution for fees, to change fees in Exhibit 9, utility rates, reuse charges, and providing for amendment of fees, incorporation of recitals, and providing for an effective date. Staff recommends reuse charges remain at the current rate for fiscal year 2025, as opposed to the 20% increase approved in Resolution 2023-06. Staff Representative Brad Calzo, Director of Water Reclamation and Public Works, recommendation adopt.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adopt. Any public comment? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item.
Okay, this is new business item 2. Discuss and present stormwater rate study. Staff Representative Morgan Zulke, Stormwater Utility Manager.
Morgan Zulke, Stormwater Utility Manager. Tonight we have Ralph Tellis they performed the rate study and they are here to give the presentation. We have Henry and Michelle here to present.
Good evening, Mayor, members, commissioners. My name is Henry Thomas. I'm a vice president with Raftalis Financial Consultants. We're a utility rate and financial firm practicing throughout the United States, but we have a significant practice right here in Central Florida. And I've worked with you, in fact, prepared the last stormwater rate study that was done a number of years ago for the city. Again, with me tonight is Michelle Galvin. Michelle was the lead investigator on this study, so I'm going to let her go through a lot of the details, but I would like to start by thanking the city staff for all the help they gave us in getting this study done. And I want to second the city manager's comment about Morgan. She was, I want to really point her out as someone that really helped guide us through this process, and she did a great job and helped us pull this together so that we could be here tonight and share it with you. So basically our focus after we began the study and got into more of the details and information, we realized that the focus we wanted to look at was for the next 3 years primarily. And I'll get into the reasoning why that is, but basically you haven't had a rate adjustment since 2021. Okay, and as of budget year 2024, the operating expenses alone in the stormwater utility system are outpacing the revenues. So in balancing your budget for 2024, you relied on reserves to accomplish that. And we all know that's not a sustainable thing, particularly in enterprise funds where we lean on reserves too long to meet our ongoing costs. So in addition to that, you've got a master plan that you've prepared. It has a number of projects in it. They're aimed largely to deal with drainage issues and water quality issues. They're in some respects driven by regulatory requirements and needs of the stormwater system. And over the next decade, they're going to be significant. But because of the inflation we've seen in recent years in operating expenses, but particularly in the cost of capital construction for projects, we didn't want to try to push too far into the future because we're not sure where these costs may be in a few years. Moreover, there's still grant opportunities in the stormwater area that you can pursue to help fund some of these things. So we focused on a 3-year rate plan, which one will bring the system, create a viable utility so that we kind of balance things out and play a little catch up and get the rate sufficient to recover operations, as well as the next couple of years of capital needs. And then with time, we'll want to recommend that you probably look at these things again, look at your funding sources. Hopefully we can get some more grants than what we've been able to identify today and have a more meaningful plan for the future after the next 3 years that really encompasses those master plan needs that you've identified. So I'm going to ask Michelle to come up. She's going to go through the key factors that we considered in examining your stormwater enterprise. And again, she put together along with Morgan, she put together the financial plan and the rate recommendations. And feel free to stop us anytime and ask questions, but also at the end, we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Good evening, Michelle Galvin with Raftellus, and as Henry mentioned, I'll be going through some of the process behind the stormwater rate study, our major assumptions, and then the rate recommendations. So as part of our study, we developed a financial forecast that reviewed historical trends and projected the revenues and revenue requirements through fiscal year 2026. We also developed a funding strategy for the CIP over the next 3 years that kept the 2024 strategic plan in mind. We evaluated the cash reserve targets and the debt coverage requirements, all to determine the adequacy of the existing rates. The major goals and considerations for the study include developing a plan to promote the long-term financial sustainability of the system, to meet the 2024 strategic plan, maintain utility cash reserves, fulfill all debt service requirements, and achieve a positive cash flow by 2026. So the stormwater system currently serves about 9,400 accounts, or about 8,400 ERUs, and currently charges a monthly fee of $8.96 per ERU. So single-family homes are assessed on 1 ERU basis, multifamily get half an ERU per dwelling unit, and non-residential is based on the impervious area. An impervious area is any artificial structures that keep water from absorbing into the ground and cause water runoff. So things like roofs, pavilions, driveways, parking lots, that kind of thing. We did assume about a 2% growth in accounts through 2026, or about 170 ERUs per year. And with that growth, we are assuming that the revenues at existing rates will increase from about $900,000 to about $940,000 over the next 3 years. And we also considered some of the miscellaneous revenues and interest income that the system collects. So the operating expenses is based on the adopted 2024 budget, and we use various escalation factors to get and assume that the O&M is expected to increase from about $1.13 million to $1.25 million by 2026. We also are seeing in the next 3 years, the capital plan is assuming about $4 million worth of projects. And the city does have one existing stormwater SRF loan that's about $65,000 a year. So you can see if the existing revenues are about $900,000, that is under the 1.13 of just the operating costs. So as Henry mentioned, the existing reserves are being used right now to pay for the difference, and that will continue without any rate adjustments. So the stormwater system has a total 5-year CIP of about $14.8 million. And as Henry mentioned, we're just focusing on the next 3 years, so that's about $4 million. And we listed some of the major projects here, with the largest one being the Cedar Woodland projects at about $9.5 million. And right now, we're only including about $1 million of that, but we are assuming in the future an SRF loan will probably be needed to cover that. And with the rate adjustments, that will cover the ability to get good interest rates and to apply for the SRF loan. And these projects are necessary to meet the strategic goals of reducing the annual nutrient loading to the Banana River Lagoon and also reducing the number of flood events throughout the city. So the next several slides show some examples of different flooding events that have happened throughout the city recently. And the CIP is designed to improve the infrastructure of the city to reduce the number of these flood events. And even when the flood events happen, in order to bounce back faster from them. So this is showing the CIP funding plan over the next 3 years. And you can see with the green bars, the city has managed to get significant grant funding for a lot of these projects, which is reducing the burden that falls onto the ratepayer. But going into the future, there's still obligations for the CIP. And you can see in the yellow bar, that is the first portion of the proposed SRF loan for that big $9.5 million project. And this is showing the revenue sufficiency at the existing rates. So the pink red bar is showing your existing revenues. And you can see at no point is it higher than the O&M costs. So throughout the forecasts, the revenues are not sufficient to pay for O&M or the debt service, and there is no additional money for the capital improvement projects. So we are recommending a phase-in rate plan. So we have 3 different rate adjustments here. First one to be established August 1st, 2024, again in January 1st, 2025, and then the third one in October 1st, 2025.
Can you go back to that slide? So the existing rate, and this is 2023 dollars, right?
Yes.
896. In 3 years, it's been more than double.
No, it's 2025.
That's what I
That's
said.
$23.
In 3 years, it's gonna go from currently 896 to 1966, which is 100% increase in 3 years.
This is October 2025. That's 1 year.
I thought it was, when you said phased, I thought it was year after year. So
We're gonna double it in 1 year.
double it in 1 year.
Yes, because right now the revenues are not sufficient to just meet operating costs.
Is it because of all of our slip lining and all that stuff that we're doing?
I'm sorry?
Is it because of all the slip lining and all that?
No, that's-
Or,
I think Morgan can answer that question better.
No, for the slip lining, we used ARPA money for that. So that was not included in this. That was included as grant money.
so
like
what's the rising, why do we have such rising costs compared to, previous years where we were okay with it?
mainly our CIP projects. For example, the Cedar Woodland Brevard for just construction alone will be over $9 million. And just other projects to meet our goals of reducing the nutrients in the water and flood events. So these huge projects are just causing everything to go up.
We were hoping to get grants for a lot of that, and that's not going through, I suppose, at this point.
As of right now, no. We applied for multiple grants last year, did not receive any, and I've actively applying for more now. So hopefully we get them. And then we'll probably have to go to SRF loans as well to try and get them.
If we front load this and we pay for it ourselves, can we use the grants in the future to pay off what we did, or is that, you have to do it? Okay.
So you approached the Sorrel folks about this?
Yes, we do have.
It sounds like it's being sold on, it's going to reduce runoff and increase water quality in the Banana River Lagoon.
Yes, so for example, McNabb and then our Ramp Road project, we have Sorrel funds for both of those, but Sorrel funds are based on how much nitrogen and phosphorus you're moving from your water, so that's like the price they give you, so the grants are not that much for those projects.
So the other thing I'd mention is when the water is really high. And we get 6 inches of rain, there's streets that are gonna flood no matter what we do with stormwater projects because it's the river flowing over the road.
Well, a couple of those pictures were, the river was higher than the streets.
Right, so it's kind of a, you know, they're using that to sell when there's absolutely nothing you can do about that. If the-
For example, for one of those, the McNabb project that's currently under construction, the seawall, we raised it up, so now it's not at the lagoon level. Previously, it was at lagoon level, so it was causing the street to flood, but now with the raised seawall, that street
I'm
will,
talking about the street off of the 2nd Street North that goes out to.
Indian Creek.
Indian Creek. That will, you can't do anything about that, and that's not, I mean, it's not on this list because really you can't do anything about it. But
So even
if the
though,
water's high, like even Woodland, okay? If the water's high in the river and it goes above the outflow pipe and there's more head pressure in the river to backload the water trying to go in, it's not gonna ever go anywhere.
yeah, so for that project, we are hoping to go out to bid soon for that, and one thing would be adding a backflow preventer at the end of that outfall. So that would be something in design phase that we are looking at. That would help with the
Like a
river
check
going
valve that
through.
only lets
Yeah,
water go
backflow.
into the river and won't let water come back in?
Correct.
sounds like a clogging plug.
Can you guys explain how this was calculated summary wise and like, then we can see how you.
Very good point. With Mother Nature and rain events, we'll never eliminate all the drainage flooding issues. What most of our engineering in stormwater is trying to do is make the system recover quicker. And part of that is that it has to be maintained properly so that the inlets and the facilities within the system operate as they're intended. And make improvements to mitigate to the extent possible those drainage issues. And again, hopefully, when there is an event where there's water that's a flooding situation, that it dissipates more quickly than if we made no improvements. So, you know, you can live with what your current situation is, or you can work to improve it. But you're absolutely right. There's no intent to totally eliminate it. That's not going to work. But the issue is what's driving these rates is that operations and maintenance expense, that's your salaries, your equipment, you know, your fuel costs, your basic operating expenses used to maintain the system are currently budgeted significantly above what the revenues are without any of these capital improvements being done. So yes, this is a large increase. I can tell you that in the last 5 years, I've done more stormwater studies than I did. I've done this for 40 years now, and I've done more stormwater studies in Florida in the last 5 than I did in the first 35 of my career. Everybody's kind of behind the 8 ball on this because nobody wanted to fund these things in the past, but with all the storms we've been having, everybody's having to own up to it. Moreover, it's become a lot more regulated than it was. So DEP and the state and the regulations with respect to water quality and nutrient loadings, we're having to deal with all that now. So what you're seeing here, while it's significant, is going to be very significant in other communities as well. Recently, the city of Palm Coast went to a rate that's going to be over $40 a month over the next 5 years. So this is unusual compared to where you've been in the past. But when you go forward and look around in the state of Florida and what's going to happen to make these improvements, these rates will not be out of line, okay? But the key here is if we don't do anything, we can't fund any of the capital projects. You're right, we're trying to pursue grants, and to the extent we can get more grants, because believe me, there's projects beyond those in the next 5 years. There's more to come. So any grants we can get that we can focus on those projects are going to be very helpful. And that's why we decided to not try to give you a picture of where we think rates are going to be in 5 to 10 years. because one, we're not sure what the construction costs are gonna be, and two, we'd like the time to pursue more grant opportunities to try to mitigate the impacts on your citizens. But this is, another important part of this is we need to get the rates sufficient so that we can go to SRF and get these low interest loans. Because if the rates aren't sufficient, they're not gonna loan you the money. And the rates need to be adopted in advance of those loans so that they have some assurance they'll be paid back. So it's not a good thing to have to tell you tonight, these kind of increases, but again, what you're doing now isn't sustainable. And the way you got through 2024, and you're right, this isn't a 3-year period. This is three fairly, we could have come to you and said, let's do it all today. But we wanted to spread it out as much as possible, but get it in ahead of needing to borrow from SRF so we could demonstrate the ability to repay the loans to them. And so there was some thought that went into this strategy, but again, we're trying to focus on getting the rates to a level where you're back into where the enterprise fund is sound. Right now, the enterprise fund is not going to sustain itself if you keep going this way.
So at what point did we get behind the rate schedule?
Well, I think one of the things I said at the outset is the last time you increased rates was 2021. Okay, so there's a number of years where we could have made more incremental rate adjustments to get closer to where we need to be, and maybe dealt with some of these capital needs with that money, and instead, without raising the rates. I believe what's happened is a lot of the capital needs have been deferred and haven't been dealt with, and on top of that, we haven't kept up with the inflation and operating expenses because we have wage increases, our costs of materials and supplies are going up and all that, yet the rates have stayed the same since 2021.
I understand. So in 2021, were we neutral, or were we still at a deficit?
I did the last study, and our intent was to balance the budget, if you will, in that study. But I did not go back and look specifically at the starting point, but I would suspect that we probably should have been even ahead of 2021 with some increases, given where they're headed. But part of the issue here, keep in mind, is some of this, we had to do the analysis. So you prepared a master plan, okay? And that master plan is the guide going forward. The other thing that's happened in recent years is all these regulations on nutrient loading and all that. Some of this was a few years ago, it was being discussed, but it wasn't as definitive as it is today. So with stormwater, the business requirements are ever evolving, and it's driven by regulation and the need for capital. And, I've got clients that can't find contractors when they want to bid projects right now. It keeps me up awake at night because I have to make rate recommendations. But, I've got a number of clients that the bids are coming in at twice what they thought they would. And that's just been the reality in recent years. So part of it is we may have been okay in 2021 or close, but things have kind of gotten out of hand with respect to capital construction costs.
So this last year was the first year that we were really over.
Excuse me?
This last year was the first year that we were really over operating.
We can go back and look for you as you deliberate this further, but we looked at the 24 budget year, and in that one, clearly you had to balance the budget with reserves.
I think capital went up from 300K to 1.8 million.
Let me let Skip go because he's been waiting.
Okay. So, kind of sounds like shame on us for not looking at, shame on me, I've been here since 2021, for not looking at this ahead of time so we didn't end up with this situation. So, you're saying, we need to ink this at this rate increase over this time period so that we will be in line to get state revolving funds. And so my question is, should the commission tonight say, well, we'll go for the August 1st and the January 2025, but between January 2025 and October, let's say May-ish, we have another look at this and decide if that 1966 number is correct, is that going to hurt our chances for,
No, I think the key here is before that project starts, first of all, we can't start spending money on the project and then expect them to loan us the money for it. So you have to apply in advance. So as long as that major $9 million project is timed such that we have time to get the SRF loan ahead of time, yeah, that can work. I mean, you're the ultimate decision makers here, and this strategy will get you there. But if we take baby steps, but our recommendation is go ahead and do all three. When I say baby steps, in time, not in the magnitude. But because even if you do the January 2021, that's a big increase.
yeah, that's almost.
No, I understand.
Almost 100%.
I understand.
80-some percent.
So the key, though, is that we make sure that as we start into these, and by then, maybe we have a better chance at landing some grants for some of those projects.
That's what I want to find out. But anyway, I don't know how that's going to mess up all these resolutions as written, but I would make a motion that we approve the August 1st, 2024 and January 1st, 2025 rate increases and revisit this again prior to a potential October increase for 2025. And look for a second.
I still have a few more questions.
Yeah.
No
So no second. Go ahead, Jeremy, you had some questions.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, there's a huge uptick. It looks like it's been the deferred capital. We were at 300K-ish for 22 and 23, and then it's up to 2 million. So that's what's killing the reserves.
In terms of so just kind of looking at the breakout of the, I guess, kind of $10-ish increase, it looks like based on the numbers we have that flood mitigation's about a $3 portion of the total increase up through the October 25. Infrastructure resilience for stormwater management is about $1.30-ish. The nutrient loading is the biggest single piece at about $4.43. How far what is the goal that gets us to, and how well does, and what progress are we really making there?
So, and there's a portion of it to catch up with your operating expenses as well, keep in mind. But I'd really like Morgan to address, that's a more technical engineering question, and I'd like Morgan to comment on how you're going to solve these nutrient loading issues, because it's going to become, especially for our coastal communities that are, next to the rivers and the Indian River Lagoon, that's going to be a big thing. So Morgan, have you got a thought on that you can share with them?
I don't have like exact numbers, but based on our CIP, we have projects that are reducing the load. And like once we do these projects over time, we did have to back some out because of our revenue. But over time, we will be getting to meet those numbers, but I don't have exact numbers of where we'd be at.
When do we have to meet those requirements by?
I believe that there's actually some in 2025 that we're supposed to meet, but in our strategic goals that Commission made, you guys said in 35 that we would meet.
So the ones in 2025, were they self-imposed or were they state-imposed?
State imposed.
Okay.
It looks like we've got like the Ramp Road Park, a pollutant loading model. Is the pollutant loading model one that's driven by like the 25?
No, that one is more of a study, but we did not do that this year.
Okay, but is that part of the pricing that we're seeing? Or is
That is in your plan, right?
That might be in the plan, but we ended up not doing it this year. But then we have other ones coming up, like the Coconut Isles bioretention area, and then right now I said that we're working on McNabb, and then there's later ones down the road.
And the Gulf Pond vegetation
Yep, that's
harvesting
another
and
one,
street
yeah.
sweeping.
So if we were to do basically what's required, the 2025 stuff, is that basically just to cover that? Or is that going beyond that?
No, our projects would extend further than 2025.
I'm saying the ones that were required to have a certain amount of that done by the state. If we were to do that, and then obviously keep applying for grants and try to go further for our other stuff. Do what's necessary rather than doing above and beyond what's necessary. And then we'll just continue to apply for grants for other stuff. I would feel more comfortable with that than just doing more than we have to do.
Yeah, I think the public safety pieces make a lot of sense. And we know we've got stormwater management problems, right? So the flood mitigation and infrastructure resilience make a lot of sense to me. And in terms of some of the just best practices, good street sweeping, those things that are just no-brainers we can do now. It seems like doing some of that, and then anything we're required to do, but especially in the economic times we're in, adding more to folks' plate is a hard ask, especially if we're aggressively getting ahead of requirements.
Yeah, I don't want
We're
to
saying
get,
like a prioritization of those capital projects?
I'd like a
What's
prioritization.
compliant versus best practice?
Yeah, what's public safety and/or required versus what's good to do? Could we move some of the good to do out toward a little bit less aggressive?
Because this is built around our CIP as it's written.
Right.
And we might not have.
we might
that
change
rack
that.
and stack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cost requirement that's driving this model, to have to ramp
Yeah.
up that fast.
So I don't know if that's yeah.
Can I actually ask Patricia some questions about this enterprise fund?
Good evening, Patricia Draycott, CFO.
Thank you, Patricia. I know when I pulled this up on the computer, the report, I could see it's not pulling up my laptop, I mean, on the iPad right now, but there was a page that actually showed the actual budget that we had for this enterprise fund. Could you give us like a summary of the past, like since 2021? Did you have to, how much did you guys have to pull out of reserves to make it balance? Or?
You mean in past years? You said it was 2021?
Yeah, since 2021, what?
So she's asking how
summary
the fund
about-
has
Yeah.
been balanced in recent years.
So the stormwater fund has been fine on the reserves, and we've been doing small projects. But our last resolution was done in 2015, and I think the last rate increase as a result of that was 2020 or 2021. And so we've continued to do projects and to continue to move forward with our stormwater projects, but we haven't had a rate increase. So as we've done the projects, we've been eating into those reserve balances. So we're now at a point where we really cannot move forward with the projects that have been identified for this program because we've got nothing left. So Morgan has actually, and Ray Tellis they've identified a lot of these projects. And so we're kind of focused on the real big one, which is the Cedar Woodland Brevard, because there's already grant money that's been granted to that project. The other focus is on the vulnerability study, because Morgan really has got a lot of limitations on the availability of grant funding without that study. A lot of the granting agencies won't even consider us without completion of that. So she wants to focus on that one project that we already have grant funds. She wants to focus on getting that study so we can go out and get more grant funds. And she's trying to focus on building up that reserve and that cash balance so that we can start to move forward with these projects. But it's just a balancing effect right now. We have to focus on the time that's available, the staff time to complete these projects, and we have to focus on what do we actually have available, whether it's cash coming from the user charges or availability of grant funds, or we apply for SRF loan. What we're proposing is really a combination of the three.
Ideally, how much would you like to see percentage-wise being put into the reserves for that?
Optimally, for your utility funds, for your sewer utility and for your stormwater, you would have a 2 months reserve balance. That's your sort of minimum best practices. More is not hurtful because, the more your reserve balances are, the more you can be responsive if you had a major event. But the minimum that you would want in either of those funds would be a 2-month.
And you're saying right now we don't have anything?
I don't know that it's, we don't have anything, but it is very low, and it's just continuing to get depleted.
Do we have at least 2 months, you think?
Honestly, I don't remember, I'm so sorry. I mean, we did have that on the slide on Tuesday, and I think she's got the 2 months, but I'm not positive, I'm just not positive at this moment, and I didn't bring it with me, and I apologize.
Okay.
But I would say if we continue to move forward with the projects, by this time next year, she will not have that. The Stormwater Fund will not have its minimum.
I would like to, I mean, for me, I would like to move forward with what is required of us at this time without doing extra, but obviously, so that we can still maintain our reserves. I do have a concern about those baffles too, but that's a separate issue that I know those can get clogged and be a maintenance nightmare. But, so I don't know, does anybody else have any questions or concerns?
I like the, oh, go ahead. Did you have something?
Oh, no.
Oh, I like the way you're thinking. I think it's imperative that we protect our ecology. I mean, that's one of the coolest things about Cocoa Beach is our environment, right? But I think public safety's got to be the priority, right? And then I think where we meet the ecological protections thresholds and standards that are met now, I think that's the right balance.
So can we do a redo on this, on current, what we need to do to stay current with our regulations, and then also maintain, for the project that we're doing to do that, maintain at least a 2-month reserve? Can we redo the numbers for that?
Well, that's kind of what this plan targets. The target is to increase revenues enough to pay your operating expenses, ongoing labor and such, to build the reserves back up, and to begin the funding of that $9 million project, as well as some of the studies that you need to do. So I wouldn't characterize this as having a lot of wishes as opposed to requirements and needs, to be honest with you, unfortunately.
I think I kind of agree with Skip on, let's do all the way to January and then reevaluate it next May and see what we got from there. At least we're bringing it up significantly.
If you make that motion, I'll second it.
Let me hear some public comment. Yeah. And then you can do your stuff.
But I'd be interested in getting another look. I mean, there's definitely money in here that's out and beyond.
John Lowe's, 444 Dempsey Drive, Cocoa Beach. None of us in this room is in a position to know if these numbers are accurate, but we have to assume that they're accurate. And we're alarmed that in the next 14 months, the number for, per ERU is going to approximately double in 14 months. That's 100% in a year. That's actually higher than that. But I think that's indicative of the fact that we've been falling behind on this for years. That's what I read from this. If we have to double this in the next 12 months, then we're behind the 8 ball a little bit. And it's my understanding, I'm not, Patricia would be able to answer this better than I, but I think we've been running behind on our stormwater fees, have been running below the O&M budget, the expenses each year. I think they've been running below for a period of time. Now, I'm saying that, I don't have numbers in front of me, but I believe that's true. And I think the 3-year look ahead, it is true. But I think it's also true in the past. And that's why we have to double the numbers in the next year. We're on a barrier island, and we're fortunate to be here. And the problems that we have are not going to get better. They're only going to get worse. And I think we're compelled to do something. I support this 1,000%. I think it would be foolish to not accept this. We'll only fall further behind. 2 days ago, most of us were here at a budget meeting. And two high-level problems at the overall budget are we're drawing our reserves down and we can't afford future capital. That's two of the big overarching problems of the entire budget. And here's a little snapshot of the budget, and the same thing is in this piece as in the overall budget. We have to get on top of this. So I would urge the commission to please approve this. Even if you want to stair step it in, we have to approve a rate increase. I think in closing, wherever the city has the opportunity to have a user fee that pays the O&M and the future capital, we have to do that because the budget, we're running shortfalls in the budget. We have to adopt things like this. That's just my feeling. Thank you.
Thank you. Rick Anderson, 1800 Minutemen Causeway, and I agree with what John said. I am personally a fiscal conservative, but in my opinion, fiscal conservatism doesn't mean mortgaging future or cutting expenses now that we're going to incur in the future because we're just chopping now. I look at these numbers, and everybody was going to say 110% increase. Folks, it's $10 a month to $20 a month. So if we were talking $100 a month to $220 a month, then we could say, whoa, but we're talking $20 a month as opposed to 10. And I don't see any fat in here. I don't see anything excessive or superfluous in here. So I really would urge you to make the right choice this time and not short us on the revenue once again and be back 3 or 4 years from now and be in a worse position than we're in today. Thank you.
Janice Scott, Cocoa Beach. You all have heard me complain many times about the paving projects in Cocoa Beach. You may say, oh yeah, those pavers are permeable. Well, if I can take you on a tour and you can see where the pavers have been sealed, so they are basically impermeable, and you can watch the water run off them when it rains into the street. The city has not done a very good job, particularly as paving has become very popular, about managing how much property you can pave and how much impermeable surface you have to maintain. And so it brings me to the point where I can show you those places. You can see them in a Google Earth. And where I pay, the same thing somebody pays who has no permeable surface on their lot anymore because they've completely paved it in. And I also don't think it's a good policy, whether make arguments to justify it or not, to have 100% increase in a year and a half. I think it needs to be smoothed out. I'm all for permeable surface, and I think that the properties that have parking lots, the commercial properties, many of them, they have very little permeable surface. But if they do it, they're not doing the ERU. I understand it a bit, how they're gonna figure this out, but I think that when you do these rate increases, they have to be fair. And maybe in the study, you should see how, especially in the single family, the ones that have permeable surface and continue to maintain it, don't pay the same as someone who has none. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. Anyone else? Yeah.
Mayor, I have a question for Henry when he's back up.
I don't live in Cocoa Beach, but Chuck Sheridan, 1405 Glenhaven Drive, Merritt Island. 2022, the Department of Environmental Protection enacted the National Estuary Program, which created about $200 million and identified different estuaries throughout the United States, and we're one of them. I don't know if you guys have applied to that. It's a new program, and a lot of people weren't aware of it. I wasn't aware of it until yesterday. So just wanted to bring that to your attention.
What was the name of that again?
It's the National Estuary Program, and it's under the Department of Environmental Protection.
Thank you. Looks like Patricia, okay.
I looked it up. So on your audited fiscal year 2023 financial report, the ending reserve balance in the stormwater fund was just a little over 1 million. If you were to take 2 months of your operating costs, you should have for 2 months of that, it should be 1.7 million. So our reserve balances are not, it's not a legal requirement, but it is absolutely a best practice to always have a minimum of 2 months.
I understand.
So we're already, as of the end of fiscal year '23,
But your
below.
budget doesn't have these revenue built into it.
No,
So it would be on top of that.
yes.
This would be an upper to
We
that.
would adjust the, yes.
And Vice Mayor, you had a question for?
Yeah, for Henry, just a quick question. So is it typical in your experience, you said you've had a surge in the last 5 years, that the commercial rates replicate the single-family home rates? That they're the
Okay,
same?
so there's a connective concept there, the equivalent residential unit. So those commercial rates are not the same as single-family home, but they're the same per amount of impervious area. So a business with a large parking lot is going to have many more ERUs than a single-family home. And the single-family home is currently treated as one. So yes, they do pay many more, but it's a uniform approach to the cost per ERU.
And then the rule is that, like, a business will pay at least one ERU and plus if they have significant impervious. Is that right?
Yeah, a convenience store is probably at least 5 to 8 ERUs.
Because of their footprint.
Because their footprint, because their parking lot and all that. So it's all done on an equivalent impervious area basis. Now, one of the things that we would tell you is in the future, you probably do need to evaluate rates and consider what an ERU definition is. But again, our strategy here was, given these significant increases, we don't want to make it even more complex and compound things until we get the enterprise on a sound footing. That's kind of first order of business in our plan. And then in the future, you can look at these things more carefully. But, you know, I would submit to you, based on the other studies I've done around the state, that if we do that, it's going to increase residential rates comparative to commercial. Because a lot of the ERU factors we use today are not, they don't reflect the modern housing stock anymore.
I remember
The
you saying that
size of
last time.
properties and the amount of impervious area.
Yep.
But that's something that we would have to examine in detail. And again, I'd really hope you focus on the financial aspects of the utility today.
Okay. I mean, I could go with the, like you said, the January 1st rate, but I personally don't want to pursue more than what we are required to do. I'd rather whatever the extra is goes into reserves, and then we just continue to search for grants, and when a grant comes through, that's when we'll start on that project, rather than just be proactive. I'd rather be grant active.
So what I'm saying is, approve the rate increase all the way through January 2025, as shown on the slide, and then you revisit the environment, whatever happens between now and then. Historically, I don't know if this day and age is true, but historically, as chunks of time go by, you actually get smarter about the future instead of dumber. So if we revisited this and say, February of next year, and it still says we need that 1966 in October, or maybe if we don't, as long as we do it before October, before the next budget cycle, to make it easy on Patricia, then I don't think it's going to hurt us. And like I said, we should know more in that amount of time about where we're going.
CIP projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with the stipulation that as we are pursuing moving forward, we clarify what is aggressive pursuit of CIP goals versus, or the nutrient loading goals versus what is required, because I think.
I'm okay with, I'll go with
already-
this if we could put that stipulation that you're only gonna do what's required, not go above and beyond.
Because that's one of the major cost drivers represented here.
I actually, what Mr. Anderson and Mr. Lowe said was kind of hit the nail on the head for me. I'm just used to being here 8 years. I'm used to seeing the same thing. Stuff got deferred so much over the last 15 years before that now we're seeing the results of what we got behind now. And now we have to make up for it, and we have to be the bad guys and put these higher fees on people because they were deferred so much before. So, I mean, I think what Commissioner Williams proposed was fair. We can take a look at it again. I think they kind of leaned out what we needed the most. They already know what we need to get what we need, the minimum. I don't think they're going over too much what we are required. But I think it's fair to relook at it again. I'd be okay with bringing it up to the October 1st amount, but you can revisit it next budget season and see what
So if you
what it
don't
brings
mind
you.
a comment for you, I would encourage you to hold more workshops and look at your capital needs and prioritize them and make sure the community shares these goals with you. The other thing, is you should keep examining the rates and the funding sources. So my concern also that I'm seeing other communities do, and I don't know if you get this kind of feedback, but the level of service that you're providing. The community has canals, it has swales and things that need to be maintained. And I've been in meetings in other communities where the elected officials and the citizens said, we want these things done more often. We want the swales mowed more, not less. We want the canals cleaned up more frequently, not less. And when you start all adding that in, again, it costs money. But when the community is together on the need for it and want it, I've, again, seen these kinds of rate increases being adopted because it's become an important issue today. And public health and safety was mentioned. That's a key part of this, as well as, protecting our environment.
So if we approve the first two rate increases and beginning of next year or whatever, we have that workshop with the public. The staff has a chance to, present what they think would be the best practices. And if it still says we need 1966 in October, then we do it. And then hopefully we'd have that community buy-in. But to just, what's going to end up on the Twitter feed is the commission just raised your stormwater fees 110%. That's all the information people are going to get.
So the other thing I would hope you would consider doing when you do this update and you look again, go ahead and extend the view out a few more years so you don't get blindsided by what may still be out there.
I'm okay with that too.
Yes, sir.
But I'll go back to my original motion that I'd like to go with the first two increases, adjust whatever's got to be adjusted in these different resolutions, and revisit this next year prior to the October timeframe.
Second that.
And I got a second.
All right, I got a motion and a second. And that's also to include not doing above and beyond, or is that?
That we'll revisit that. That'll be part of the revisit.
That's got to happen between then and.
Right, I just wasn't sure if they had anything planned in the interim that's above and beyond.
Well, and I think to the mayor's point, and to Commissioner Willis's point, if we're going through and catching up, the math works in terms of addressing all identified flood mitigation activities, identified infrastructure resilience activities, and identified best practices, street sweeping, maintenance, bioretention areas. And essentially what we're looking at is just not doing that last increase, which does the nutrient loading studies and the models and things like that, which may absolutely be necessary to meet the requirements identified for now. But I think we just need to be able to see that it does.
Okay, I got a motion, a second for Skip's motion for staying to January 2025. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, next.
Okay, this is item B, adopt resolution 2024-16, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Cocoa Beach, Florida, adopting stormwater fees and method for charging and providing for interpretation and for an effective date. Staff Representative Morgan Zulke, Stormwater Utility Manager. This will need to be revised, it appears.
Would those be
Two.
revisions based on the previous? Or could we move as such?
I think that we can go ahead and make the changes on the fly because the rates are set forth in 3 different columns here. And if someone would make a motion to approve it, but to amend it in accordance with the previous vote to remove the last 10/1/2025 rate, I think we can go forward with it now.
All right, I'll move to approve resolution 2024-15 stormwater rate study amended to exclude the October 1st, 2025 to be revisited later.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. All, any public comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Next item.
Okay, this is item 3, adopt resolution 2024-14, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Cocoa Beach, Florida, accepting a proposal of JP Morgan Chase Bank N.A. to provide the city with a term loan in order to finance certain costs of the acquisition, construction, and equipping of a new City Hall building in Cocoa Beach Centennial Square, the form of a loan agreement authorizing the issuance of a promissory note pursuant to such loan agreement in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $3,953,000 in order to evidence such loan, authorizing the repayment of such note from a covenant to budget and appropriate legal availability non-available, non-ad valorem revenues, delegated certain authority to the city manager and others for the authorization, execution, and delivery of the loan agreement and the note and various other documents with respect thereto, and providing for an effective date. This approval allows the city manager to sign the loan agreement with JP Morgan Chase Bank N.A. to obtain $3,953,000 in debt financing and loan fees for the construction of the new City Hall facility. Staff Representative Patricia Draycott, Chief Financial Officer, Assistant City Manager.
All right. Well, they kept their bargain, the 3.9, so I'm okay with it. Anybody, any public comment or comment about this? We need a motion to vote for it.
So I'm interested to see Commissioner Hutcherson's thoughts.
I'll make a motion to approve, what is it, J1? I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi's down, so I'm reading off script. J3? J3, got it. Make a motion to approve J3 as read by the attorney.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
This is the subject matter.
Should probably wait for Skip on this one.
Yeah.
I'll say my comments. I think we have to. Obviously, you guys know I was the one to push back on the scope of the project, so I was against the overall cost, but it started. I think we have to finance it. Patricia's done a great job getting this, so it's really just a financing tool. Of course, you have to do it. I'll probably vote no, just so it aligns with my objection to the scope of the project. But
You don't have to vote on principle all the time, but I understand where you're going with that.
But kudos to the city manager and Patricia, they beat the bushes and we've got to finance it.
I think and it's a favorable financing, and it doesn't touch ad valorem. So it's not going to be paid for out of the pockets. The concern is making sure we don't infringe on other capital projects that are going to decrement just what is already existing and in place for the city. But overall, I agree, this is a favorable product.
So it's less than 4%. We'll make more money than taking it out of.
Yep.
So it makes sense. We're just, actually, you want to should we just take a recess while we're waiting for Skip?
Good.
All right,
I anticipate it's going to pass.
let's just do a 5-minute recess. comment and public comment for the construction loan of the 3.953 million. And we had a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you for that, Jeremy. Next
Okay,
item.
this is item 4. Staff is requesting the City Commission review and authorize the execution of the attached three-party agreement. This agreement is between the city, Brevard County, and Westgate, the owners of the pier. This agreement establishes an easement to be used to facilitate access to the beach north of the pier for the beach renourishment program. Execution of this agreement is a requirement of finalizing the vacation of a portion of Meade Avenue, Ordinance 1668, March of 2022, as well as the execution of the development agreement and the master plan for the Westgate Resort at the pier. Staff Representative Randy Stevenson, Development Services Director.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioner. My name is Randy Stevenson, Director of Development Services. I'm so glad we got to the easy part of the agenda, so we'll move forward. I'd like to take a few minutes, if you would, just before we get started and if this thing works. Go over just an explanation of really what encompasses the next two agenda items so you can kind of put them in place with what we're looking at. This is probably the third plan development we've done in the city of Cocoa Beach. These have been done nationally, and I've been doing them for the last, I hate to admit it, 43 years. But it's a different type of development maybe than a lot of you are used to. The first type of zoning that we have and that has really governs most of the city, especially our residential areas, is Euclidean. For those engineers in the room, that has nothing to do with geometry, so we'll go from there. Euclidean actually came about because of a lawsuit between Amber Development and the town of Euclid, Ohio. And what Euclidean zoning does is it essentially separates everything: residential here, commercial here, industrial here, retail here. And if you look at part of the city, for the most part, that's what we got, especially in our retail areas. That caused problems, not the least of which was sprawl, additional mandate use for cars, for transportation, things of this nature. So about 1980, I guess, was when the first major form-based codes came out. If anybody's familiar with Seaside up in North Florida, that was one of the first towns, the award-winning town. And it concentrated more on mixed-use neighborhoods and a mixture of uses with pedestrian-friendly streets, walkability. It focused on the physical form of the built environment rather than a separation of uses. And we have examples of both. And as you'll know, back about 5 years ago, we set up 4 redevelopment districts. Within those redevelopment districts, we allow planned developments. And planned developments were basically put in place to allow some type of, a little more freedom. It's what I call a negotiated development. It allows more freedom so that for the private sector as well as the city. It's a little bit of give and take, and we can get more creative designs. If we apply some of these larger properties and we apply Euclidean zoning to them, you get what we have in a lot of places now. You get a building up, especially, let's talk on the beach, you get a building on the beach with a sea of parking in front. Not very creative, functional, but it works. If we tried to apply form-based code to some of these larger places, we'd have to come in and put in a lot of roads, because form-based code, again, concentrates on walkability, it concentrates on storefronts. So we're using this third option. As you can see here, this is what we might get if we tried to do a form-based code on a larger lot, where we've got streets running in here and where we've got just, square buildings and things. And so we're creating streets rather than allowing them to be created in the unit itself, on the property itself. This is what we're looking at the pier right now. As you can see, everybody's familiar with that. Whoops. And this is what is being proposed using the PD. And what we tried to do, just to kind of break it down a little bit, it's very hard to take a subjective design and break it down into numbers that can be compared, but we did try to do that for the most part, just to give you an idea. What you see in this side is what would be for the form-based code if we tried to apply it. What you see here is what will be represented in the PUD that you're looking at tonight. And I didn't think that battery was going to last, and it didn't. But you can see there are 3 areas where there is a difference. One, form-based code requires a 10-foot minimum setback. The other one goes straight to the CCL line. The front separation, which is for parking, not buildings, can go to 10 feet. That helps facilitate, in this case, a parking garage, structured parking. And the height difference was approved by the commission. 2 things that I need to bring up also. On March 17th, 2022, the City Commission did approve the vacation of Meade Avenue. It is not effective yet, and I'll go over that in just a second. And on July 7th, 2022, the Commission approved a variance to the Land Development Code to allow a maximum height of 70 feet. So those are inherent and run with the land. The first item that you'll look at tonight, unless there are any questions on just that very simple run-through. Yes, sir.
Too bad. Can you back one slide? Is that the only depiction we're going to see of this?
This is also in the development agreement in your packet.
Right, yeah. I just want the north side, or the top side of that, the brown part, is where Brevard County, us, would be able to do beach renourishment by taking trucks through there, correct?
That's correct, just right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where does that come out on the beach? I have a hard time seeing where that actually enters.
It comes out almost at the same place, because you remember if Meade had continued through here, it would be coming out right here, and I apologize.
So they go
It comes out
around.
essentially, yeah, approximately the same place up here.
So instead of going straight out to the beach from there, they go back to the south and then out to the beach?
That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out.
So
Basically, this is, Patricia, this is no cost to the city, this or the next one?
No.
Okay. And no future accounting, dotting i's, crossing t's, or anything, except for, doing building permits and following up with the...
Right, and again, it's encapsulated, and Jack Kirschenbaum and Rochelle Lawndale are here representing the applicant. I know Jack has worked on this for at least 2 years, this particular agreement, 4, to put this agreement in place that you see before. And I don't want to get too much into the details, but needless to say, this agreement is necessary because when you approve the vacation of Meade, it cannot be recorded until this document is in place. The document you see before you tonight, to the best of my knowledge, has been reviewed by Westgate, the county, and the city. And I think the other 2 parties are ready to execute this agreement.
And this use for beach renourishment is written into, goes with the land too?
Yes. Okay. It runs with the land, yes, sir.
All right, then I'll move to, on this one, J4, I move to approve the 3-party agreement between the city of Brevard County and Westgate.
Second.
All right, got a motion and a second. I've got some public comment. We'll start off with you, Jack.
Less is more, Jack. You're retired now.
It's so nice to be here. If you have any questions, I'll answer them.
I have no questions. Any other public comment? All right, let's. You guys got any concerns? Okay, let's go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item.
Okay, item 5, adopt ordinance 1690 on first reading, an ordinance of the City of Cocoa Beach, Brevard County, Florida, to approve a planned development project with an accompanying master conceptual development plan master conceptual site plan and development agreement with accompanying attachments to amend the official zoning map of the city of Cocoa Beach by changing the zoning designation from Oceanside OC to Plan Development PD for 2 parcels of land totaling 4.667 acres, more or less, located east of Ocean Beach Boulevard on the north-south side of Meade Avenue and north of Pulsiver Avenue on parcels identified with parcel numbers 243726 CG 113-6 and 243726 CG 112-12 within the public records of Brevard County, Florida, providing for authorization, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Staff Representative Lauren Welts, Principal Planner Randy Stevenson, Development Services Director.
Move to approve ordinance 1690 on the first reading.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? Go ahead, Janice.
Janice Scott, Cocoa Beach. When are we going to see the traffic study? When does that have to be presented to be part of this, to approve this plan? Have they got one yet?
It's not my department, but I'm sure
Thank you.
we've got
What?
somebody behind you that will say something.
Thank you.
It's a preliminary traffic study. As they move forward with this project and get into the hard numbers in terms of design, that will be updated. That is a requirement of the construction documents, the contractual documents. We have to have all of that and approved by us before we issue a permit for all of this. Stormwater studies, a lot of different studies are going to have to come forward on this project. And again, as you've heard me say this before, what we're trying to do now is we're trying to let them know that they have a project. And now they get to go spend the serious dollars.
Thank you, Randy.
Yep.
I mean, I would assume the biggest problem over there with traffic right now is people can't find a parking space. So they're driving around more cars on the street because they got nowhere to go. I think you provide more parking, you're going to have less traffic.
A couple of things. First, well, actually 3 things. More parking spaces by a factor of almost 2. Instead of pulling in now to the surface lot where you have to stop and count your nickels, dimes, and quarters and pay the attendant to park there, it's automated. 50 of those spaces are within the city's parking program. And second, more of that parking will be in place since it's at a resort. And they, instead of 1 exit now, they have 2 exits.
Yeah.
So we're beginning to distribute that traffic, fasten or speed up the entrance and dissipate the exit.
I mean, I can tell you from my personal experience, I've been there and I've seen cars sit for 2 minutes while I try to find their change or whatever. So if you can just drive in and automatically go, you're going to alleviate traffic. That traffic will get backed all the way up to that light sometimes because of that, because of the time that it takes to try to figure out how they're going to pay. So,
And again,
I think
this is, as you've already said, this is first reading. It'll be back to you at one of the next meetings. And in the DA, they're bound by what they've said in there. Any changes within a certain percentage, I think it's 10%, has to come back to this commission before they can move forward.
Thank you. All right, so we've got a motion and a second. More public comment.
John Dillon, East Osceola Lane. When this project came up, FDOT knew nothing about it, after y'all voted everything about it a couple years or so ago. Talked to the former city manager, said they have a study, a traffic study. Never could see that. He has one now. I'd like to see that. My main concern is, I don't care about that area, but I don't want on a residential area with the traffic, which will be coming on the residential area. The city streets were not designed for load, what's it gonna have from all that traffic? Which means the city's gonna come back and repave those streets again and again, because they're not designed for commercial load. So anyway, I want to take a look at that package that Randy has, and I'll give my comments about that afterwards.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. So we got a motion and a second. All in favor? Oh,
Jack Kirschenbaum, representing the applicant. I just wanted to give the clerk 2 things. One was the resume of our planner, Rochelle Lawandale's, and the other was a copy of her report, so it was in the record.
Go ahead. Thank you.
And the only other thing I wanted to say is this started 4 years ago, and I said then, March of 1,000 Miles begins with its first step, and we are so close to the final steps, and I want to thank your staff and everybody that we've worked with over 4 years of getting it to this point. And if there's any questions or comments from anybody, Rochelle or I or Brian Smith from Westgate will help answer them and work them out. And lastly, I retired a couple months ago. I don't practice day to day anymore, but I felt so strongly about this project as a lawyer and as a resident and as a surfer and who surfs at the pier a lot, that I just had to be here for these last couple of steps. And again, to say thank you very much for all the assistance.
Thank you, Jay. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right. There was one thing I wanted to say. City Attorney, what did you bring up earlier? There was before the meeting, I forgot what it was, and I was going to bring it up and clear the air on something.
It's very important.
Oh, I know what it was. So some of you guys had some concerns about the agenda or the meeting announcement coming in a little late, or, you know, obviously it should be beforehand, but we had a computer glitch error. So that is not going to happen anymore, hopefully, once we get that fixed. But there's something wrong in the system. So that's not done intentionally so that you guys miss the meetings. So I just want to let you know
It
that.
sounds like that was the hiccup tonight as well. It was not.
Yeah,
it was actually
so the
that
last,
bad.
I think, 2 meetings, I think we've been having problems with that because we got some new software or something along those lines. So we're working on it. It's not intentional. We want you to come to these meetings, and I want you guys to get all that you have to say off your chest. Meeting adjourned.